Welcome back to part 8 of our 15-part Interventional Radiology Coding Masterclass. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer because today, we are tackling one of the most foundational and frankly fascinating concepts in medical coding. If you've been following along with us, you already know the human vascular system is this incredible, sprawling network. But trying to actually code for procedures performed inside that network, that can feel completely overwhelming. So let's just jump right in and clear up all that confusion today. Have you ever stared at a complex interventional radiology operative report and just thought, how in the world do we map these selective catheter placements without getting totally lost in the anatomy? It's a great question because, honestly, imagine trying to navigate a dense, overgrown forest without a compass. A physician threads a catheter through this literal maze of arteries, taking lefts, taking rights, branching off into smaller and smaller vessels. And as a coder, you're expected to follow that exact path and assign the perfect codes. Without a structured guide, it is incredibly easy to get completely lost and just assign the wrong codes. But fear not, we actually have a compass. Enter CPT Appendix L. This is your dedicated vascular family reference, beautifully tucked into the back of your CPT codebook, just waiting to save the day. Think of Appendix L as the ultimate solution. It's the coder's indispensable map. It is specifically designed to help us navigate and code these selective catheter placements with pinpoint accuracy. It literally takes the terrifying complexity of the human vascular system and translates it into a highly organized, standardized set of rules. Now, to truly master vascular coding, you need a bit of a shift in perspective. You have to stop thinking of blood vessels as a random bowl of spaghetti. Instead, start picturing them exactly like a branching tree. This metaphor, that the human vascular system functions exactly like a tree, is the absolute secret to unlocking accurate coding. Just like a tree has a massive trunk that splits into large boughs, which then split into smaller branches, and finally tiny twigs, our blood vessels follow this exact same hierarchical branching pattern. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual architecture of this vascular tree, exactly as defined by the guidelines. Step 1 is the trunk. That's your non-selective base vessel. Think of the mighty aorta. From there, step 2 brings us to the primary boughs, or what we formally call first-order branches. These are the major vessels arising directly from that main root trunk. Moving deeper into the structure, step 3 covers the secondary branches, or second-order vessels, which branch directly off those first-order arteries. And finally, reaching the outer edges, step 4 includes the distal branches. These are third-order vessels and beyond, branching further and further out into the periphery of the body. So let's ground this tree metaphor in actual medical terminology by mapping out the distinct territories of the body. Appendix L categorizes the entire body into specific vascular families, and each one governs a unique region. You have the intracranial arteries, supplying the critical territory inside the skull to the brain. The carotid arteries, managing the large vessels in the neck that supply the face and head. The coronary arteries, solely responsible for feeding the heart muscle itself. The visceral arteries, branching off the aorta to supply your internal abdominal organs. And finally, the lower extremity arteries, which govern the vessels carrying blood down into the legs. What's honestly so fascinating here is how this proves the universality of the tree model. For example, let's compare the visceral arteries with the lower extremity arteries. The visceral family goes inward, right? It dives into internal organs like the liver and spleen. The lower extremity family, on the other hand, travels outward and downward to the legs, involving vessels like the iliac and femoral arteries. Functionally and anatomically, they serve totally different regions of the human body, but structurally, in the eyes of Appendix L, they both follow the exact same trunk, primary, secondary, and distal branching logic. The standardized map applies universally, regardless of the territory. Let's look at a real clinical example to see this hierarchy in action. Imagine you're reading a patient chart where a catheter is initially placed in the right femoral artery. Okay, so this is our entry point. The catheter is then advanced up into the abdominal aorta. Boom, there's our central trunk. Then the physician carefully navigates it into the left common iliac artery, which is a primary branch coming directly off that trunk. Finally, the catheter is advanced further down into the left superficial femoral artery to evaluate the tibial level. Do you see the journey there? We started at an access point, established our main base trunk, and selectively navigated down through specific hierarchical branches until we hit our target destination. So you might be wondering, why did we just trace that entire path? Well, because of an absolutely crucial coding rule. We code only the final placement. In this specific case, that's the left superficial femoral artery. that final code inherently includes all the lesser first-order selections that it took to get there. This is precisely why coders rely on Appendix L. It removes all that anatomical ambiguity. By standardizing the hierarchy, you always know exactly which vessel is the highest order reached. This ensures you don't overcode the pathway and, importantly, avoids duplicate billing. And here is a golden rule you definitely want to remember. These hierarchical rules apply no matter what the physician is actually doing inside those vessels. Interventional radiology generally falls into two distinct camps. First, we have diagnostic procedures. This is where we're identifying blockages or diseases by injecting contrast dye for imaging, just like in angiographies. Then we have therapeutic procedures, which involve actively treating those conditions using image guidance. Think balloon angioplasties or stent placements to restore circulation. But here's the thing. Whether you are just mapping the branches diagnostically or actively fixing them therapeutically, the branching codes of Appendix L remain your steady, reliable guide. When you step back and look at the intricate, sprawling, and beautifully complex network of the human vascular system, yeah, it's easy to see how a coder could feel overwhelmed. But armed with Appendix L, we don't see chaos anymore. We see the trunk. We see the primary bows. We see clearly defined, distinct vascular families. Appendix L creates structured order out of all this immense complexity, giving us clearly defined branch orders for both the arterial and venous systems. It literally transforms a terrifying maze into a highly navigable, straightforward map. And that structural foundation is exactly what you need to succeed. Today, we've defined what Appendix L is, we've established the vascular tree architecture, and we explored how this hierarchy dictates our coding rules by standardizing the pathways. But how do we actually sit down with a chart, count the branches, and calculate if a vessel is first, second, or third order? Well, that is exactly what we are going to master in our next explainer. Coming up in Part 9, we will learn step by step how to select and calculate the precise order of an artery. Because hey, if you can't accurately count the branches, how can you code the final destination? Thank you for watching and keep learning with Decode Healthcare with Harshal.